Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing? Um, so I guess I'll lead off with this one, Chad.
Yep. All
Um,
yours.
so thank you very much for joining us, everyone. If you're watching on Chad's channel or you're watching on mine, we'd really appreciate it if you could smash the like button and also, give us a little comment, let us know where you're coming in from. And also, just quickly, a shout out to Purple. Thank you for becoming a new member. And today we thought we would talk about experimentation and optimizing your experience on Carnivore. So, um, Chad and I were talking, and I kind of suggested this topic because this is one of the topics that I tend to get a lot of comments on my channel, and that's relating to, am I doing this right? How am I doing this? Should I be doing carnivore this way? Is it okay to add this particular thing? And how do I get the most benefits out of carnivore? And I think for me anyway, and I'm really interested to hear what you think about this, Chad, is I think at some point um, we need to we need to become our own experiment.
Yeah.
And there's some basics that we need to get right. Of course, we need to get rid of most or all of the carbs, but at some point we need to really be our own experiment, be our own N of one. What's your feeling on that one, Chad?
Yeah, big time. I think people that watch me know that because I just test the heck out of everything. And it's
Mm,
even me quitting coffee. I tested it and it took until the 2 year mark that I quit. So I tested that. It's like me testing the eggs that I'm allergic to. I'll keep
mm,
going along with those. And I'm still testing them to this day, every 6 months. And they still don't agree with me, but it's worth testing them because they're good. I
mm,
test within the carnivore space. The only sometimes I'll step out of the carnivore spaces with spices because my boy has some taco meat and I might have a little bit of, the taco meat. And it's like, yeah, sure enough, I feel it. I'll test cream. I think like 2 or 3 ago, I was telling you I was doing cream. Remember, I told you I was doing like a
mm,
half cup of cream for a month, and I wanted to see if like I stabilized and then like came back down to non-hurting and non-noticing it, but I didn't. It's like that it hit this plateau and stayed. So sometimes I'll do it for, a long time. But I test within the carnivore space, mostly with
mm,
dairy and what works. And here I am,
mm,
what, 4+ years into this, 5 years with my keto, and I'm still testing and I'm still
mm.
finding out what's optimum. And as we were talking before, I eat a ton of lamb now, and Beth in here, I was talking with too, like, she's finding lamb doing well. So even me going from, the beef to finding out like, wow, lamb's really doing well. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta test.
Um,
And the time will fly. The time
yeah.
will fly. Here I am 4 years later. I'm still testing, still finding my optimum.
And I think that's an important point. You know, you're years into this and you're still kind of testing things.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we kind of get used to because we're always looking to an authority to tell us, over our lives, this is how you should diet, this is how you should do this, this is how you should do that. And, there's always a plan. And so we get to carnivore and we feel like, well, there should be a plan for this as well. And while there is a plan and it's pretty simple, it's just eat meat or just eat
Yeah.
animal products. when someone says, well, is it okay if I still have coffee? Or is it okay if I still have this much cheese in a day? Or is it okay if I still have this or this or this? Or just dairy generally? Um, I think that's when it comes down to, well, okay, you're doing okay with just meat and eggs, or you're doing okay with just meat. Just try and add it in, try and test it, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like it gets to a point, I think, once you're into the diet where it's just like, okay, let go of the side of the swimming pool and just test for yourself.
And that's the biggest thing is test. Look at Dr. Barry. He still drinks coffee. Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker don't. Pick your favorite leader, you know. It is like one does, two don't. I don't know if that outnumbers them, but you know, it's up to you what you want. And also, I use that analogy of riding a bike. Again, I used to be a big bikey, so we would go out and ride 40 to 100 miles, really hard pace. Some people just want to take their bicycle, pedal down to the park, and enjoy feeding the ducks or whatever. You know,
Mhm.
you've got to decide if that coffee bugs you, but you like the enjoyment more than that little bit of bugging you. It's like my
Mm.
eating a little bit of the Parmesan cheese for the no gallbladder works. And I've been doing it for about 6 months now. And before that, I didn't. But it works and it makes it easier that I don't have to think as hard on how much fat I'm taking in. So if I go over or under a little bit, it doesn't matter. But I think from your year, start and going over your year, we also have to do these micro adjustments the whole way along. And I don't think that's as much testing as we just have to know that it's continuously changing.
Mm.
You might
Yeah.
have, but it's subtle. You know what I mean? It's like watching a professional race car lap. They're only varying by like a quarter of a second a lap, but they are having some variance as they do
Mm.
that. So they're
Yeah.
kind of, you know what I mean, at that optimum thing, but they're still never consistent. Do you find that
Mm.
with your food that you might vary it a little bit?
I'm a creature of habit, and so
So you're pretty
my
tight on it?
my testing is in that regard is very minimal. I
Okay.
don't change things up unless
But
there's kind of a long weekend and we're going out to different restaurants for a while. I might go, oh, I feel a little bit different because I'm having restaurant steaks or whatever.
so if you eat your ground and your eggs that you do, and if you
Mm.
find yourself a little hungry toward the evening, do you just kind of go, "Oh, I'll be okay till tomorrow," and just put it off and eat again tomorrow, and life goes on? Or do you ever maybe sometimes go, "I'm just going to have a couple extra eggs, or I'm going to have a little bit that's left over"?
Oh, I'll definitely eat again. So,
Okay,
the
maybe that's what I
decision.
mean. There is some variance.
Oh
Like
yeah, oh
that.
yeah,
That's I guess
definitely.
maybe what I mean. Like if you do get hungry, you don't go, "No, I'm going to hold on to you know
Yeah,
23.7 grams of this and only this." It's like,
that's what that's what I'll often talk about with people who comment about, I need to try and do OMAD. And the first thing I'll say is you don't like one thing that I think that we really need to separate is like intermittent fasting and carnivore because they're not the same thing. And I think a lot of the time people can kind of lump them together as this one thing. Um, and I think intermittent fasting can be good. It's certainly good time wise. But I think the important thing is intermittent fasting should be a product of carnivore, not a thing that you have to do with carnivore. Like
yeah.
if you eat to satiety and you don't feel like eating again, just don't eat. And so that's what my OMAD is like. It's like I like it for the time savings that I get, and the fact that I'm more productive as a result. But if I'm hungry again later in the day, I'll eat a second meal, which will be, another pound of ground beef or something. And the decision about whether I'll just wait till tomorrow or whether I will eat really comes down to, do I start to feel hungry early enough the evening. Like if I start to feel hungry at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, I'll put it off till the next day because I'm not going to feel good trying to sleep after I've eaten a pound of beef.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And see, I'm the same way. Like I do OMAD all the time, but I'll still like if I'm truly hungry. And I think this is that thing. If I try to think back to that first 6 months, I was all over the place on hunger.
Mm.
Some days it would be half pound, some days 3 pounds kind of thing. Where now it's pretty stable, but you just kind of know. You just kind of like, okay, this is really bad hunger. This is like I'm not
Yeah.
going to make it. And then you're might as well do it. And the worst case scenario for me, sometimes I overmake my main meal and then I just have it in the fridge. And if I don't eat it the next day, I'll just eat that first, and then see how it goes. So I tend to always have a
Mhm.
little bit of leftover when I make stuff too,
Yeah. I
because I don't have
think,
to think then. I can just grab it out of the fridge and eat it cold. Go ahead.
yeah, for me, the hunger kind of pangs come on a lot differently on carnivore as to when you're on a regular diet. Like they come on more slowly on carnivore. Whereas in a regular diet, it's like your body just says to you, eat now, go and find something quick. Um, but I think the way I kind of understand now that I really should eat a second meal is once it starts to impact my concentration in other areas. Once I'm kind of drifting back to food, food. It's like I should eat something, or I'm just going to be like this for the rest of the day.
That's that's my I get up and I open the fridge door and I go, okay, that means I'm hungry. When I open the door,
Yeah.
that's my thinking. I'm kind of like, okay, can I have a couple spoonfuls of this or that? And, you know,
Mm, yeah.
so yeah, so I'm about halfway to reaching my weight loss goals, carnivore for 1 year, but I've stalled for 7 months. I would say do the lion diet for 90 days. Just give it a shot. That's totally in this testing, man. It's just, you know,
Mm,
try it. And I think too that I like to find my optimum. Some people might just want to find their happy spot. Maybe that's a good word for it, where they're, hey, I'm
mm,
feeling great. I'm feeling than I ever thought possible. I love my morning cup of coffee. I like my carnivore pizza that, again, I'm kind of against the carnivore pizzas only if you've got an eating problem and only if you're relying on them. I want to make that clear because then people are like, what's wrong with carnivore? It's like nothing wrong with them, but just no, save them for a treat if you like those. I think you
mm.
and I are in the same spot. We don't really like the hassle of making fancy things.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you
I'm way
agree?
too lazy for all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
did it
just
on
not worth
keto, but
it.
that's only because all that keto stuff comes in packages.
Yeah,
And that's what
or it
messed me
takes
up.
a lot.
Yeah.
You get really good experience. At least I did with almond flour. Really good experience with
Uh,
almond flour and eggs and little weird fake breads
hmm.
but to give you an idea too for this question, with my dad and everything going south that some of you know about, the total weight I ended up putting on was 17 pounds over my normal. So I'd hit to 195 was I think where my scale hit on the top.
Mm.
And I just tried to coast it and get my emotions back in check and it didn't work and it didn't work. So this is my second week into fasting 2 days every week and I'm going to commit to 2 months. And I don't know where I'm going to be at tomorrow, but this morning I was down. What was I down? I was down 10 pounds already.
Oh, wow.
So just doing that. And I think the fasting also, and the mental side of it, like I said, I've always had really stress kind of, positions and jobs. So it's okay. So I deal well with stress, but my dad is stress that I'm not used to. But I'm getting it in check because he's on this plateau. But, if you guys know me, I'm pretty hardcore carnivore for this 4 years. I don't eat outside the space. I've never cheated outside this. I just don't need to. But it took doing something. And I do think there's something about this what do you want to, I don't want to call it like shocking the body in a bad way, but you got to do something that breaks the norm, whether that's overeating for a couple weeks maybe, or doing something. I don't want to ever undereat. I'd rather overeat and then pull back to maybe get a stall going. So I
Mm.
think that also for me is a lesson that I can pass on now, because I've never had high stress till now, and I couldn't get it under control normally. I hit that plateau and I just plateaued, and I was plateaued for like almost 2 months in this higher weight. And until I started this, you know, fasting, I think that's what's doing it. And I feel so much better now. I'm actually back to actually feeling like my hunger is getting in check. The first day is horrible. I hate the first day of a fast. So I just want to eat because I like eating. And the second day isn't so bad. But
Mm.
what say you on that
Um, so
for
I'm
this,
interested.
getting over a stall?
Yeah, getting. So I mean, in my experience, like I'm permanently stalled. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask about this, but I would, yeah, I would be changing things around. Anything that you can change, but I would only be changing one thing at a time and doing it for a period. Like if you're going to go lion, then yeah, I would do the lion for the 90 days without changing anything else. Um,
Yeah.
then if you want to incorporate some kind of intermittent fasting or something, then do that, but only do that after you've done lion diet for that 90 days.
And this is where I think we're pretty graceful, a bunch of us, on like, hey, if you're gonna have cheese and you mess up, whatever, learn from it, move on. There's also that spot where you do just have to lay down the law on yourself and just toughen up and do it. It's like me. I could have easily just went, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna have some lamb chops anyway and forget my committing to this. And I think that's important on a test, is that you do commit. Like I'm committed for 2 months of this. And if you're gonna commit to that 3 months of doing it, just commit. Just I know it's gonna be maybe tough, but probably not because you've been on carnivore for quite a while, but definitely just make it happen. Because then that way the
Mm,
test won't be messed up. But again, I give this to people out there who are 6 months in, 3 months, even a year, like, "Oh, man, it just takes so long to test all this stuff." Because I clean up for, like, 3 months or 2 months, and then I'll test, and then I'll test it maybe for a month, and then I'll clean up for a month or 2 months or 3, whenever I feel right. But here I
mm,
am 4 plus years later and still doing it, because you know what? You're gonna be passing this time anyway. It's like you are going through time no matter what. So you
mm,
might as well use it to your advantage. And to me, to find the optimum of where I am now from my 1 year mark, I'm so much further than I ever thought possible from all this testing. I
mm,
I do love cream, and the carnivore ice cream thing is a fun treat, but it does hurt me. Pasteurized
mm,
cheese hurts me. Soft cheeses hurt me. The hard Parmesan cheese doesn't hurt me, and that Gruyere, which I only found out about last year, doesn't hurt me, and both are raw dairy, so there's something there. My
mm,
recent find as of a few months ago with the lamb and slowing down on beef is a big difference, but it took me that long to get to lamb. I tried goat. Remember when I told you I was trying the goat for a while back, a bit ago,
yeah,
if you remember that, Dave? And that didn't do the same thing for me. So I don't know what it is.
yeah.
I know Beth and
But
I were having a good conversation on one of our threads about it too. So
I think this is important though. Like, as you say, the time's going to pass anyway. But, you know, uh, when you're thinking about making a change like this, you know, um, everyone's going to react differently to everything. And so it
mhm.
doesn't matter how much advice anyone gets from anyone else that says, oh, it's probably not going to work, or maybe you'll be okay, or whatever it is. Ultimately, you never know until you test yourself, right?
Yep.
Hmm.
And that's the biggest thing. And
Wow,
I think,
Patrick's coming up on 2 years. Nice work.
yeah, that's nice.
Hmm.
I would say, if you're there, comment like, I see your goal down there, so I'll hit that in a second. But Have you tested much yet? Have you stopped like doing certain things? I don't know if you eat dairy. Have you ever just tried to stop, Patrick, like dairy for say a month and see what happens? And then when you introduce it, see what happens. Have you done any of your own testing on that? Other people
Mm.
too. I'd be curious to know if some of you guys have tested and what you've tested. To me, the big ones are always going to be coffee. Coffee's number one to test. And then I think dairy, deciding the cheeses, what kind of cheeses you're going to do. And like chicken went out for me at 6 months and pork went out for me at 1 year, but I still like bacon every 3 months. And I might do pork ribs every once in a while, but that's about it.
And interestingly, did chicken go out because you were having a bad reaction to it, or you just didn't like the taste?
I could eat it and I would get belly full, like I was eating carbs, and I still felt
Mm.
unsatiated. I still felt like I wanted something. Pork, I can eat enough pork ribs. Pork chops, I don't do as well for. I think it's because they're not as fatty as the pork ribs, you know. Um, so the pork ribs I can eat and pretty much there, but I'm getting like that weird, you know how there's that difference of belly full and satiated full? You know, I think
Yeah.
most carnivores know that. When you get full, you still feel like you can bend over and look at your shoes, you know, kind of thing. And if I can just sit there and eat pork and just eat an insane amount. And then the problem is I think I'm getting too much, literally too much meat in me. And then I'm just like, oh, yeah, like, you know, just I've got that groggy, tired kind of
Oh,
crashing.
interesting.
So it's like it doesn't do it. Now if I take pork and I make it because my daughter likes it, I'll eat half pork and half beef and I'm okay, but I'm not
Mm.
optimum. And the next day when I
Mhm.
eat beef, I just go up like, you know, I'm the gold medal guy, not the bronze guy. It's that close. It's a small bit, but I feel it. And I
Yeah.
like being the dude with 7 medals around my neck for how I feel in the morning. That's me.
Interesting. Wow.
Hit this one. I'll let you hit this one. This is I just to cover this. Am I the only one who feels so depressed and sorry for myself? Meat and water is just so sad. I'm a good cook and I miss it too much. I would ask, how long have you been on it? That would be the first
Mhm.
clue.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, just reading that for me, it feels like maybe you're kind of close to the beginning. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Anybody
And
else there too can kind of type in what they think to support her because I think I used to be a foodie, hardcore foodie. I actually wanted to be a chef at one point in my life,
mm,
and I used to love cooking that. Keto kind of I think going keto first did help both Dave and I because it gets you away from the snacking. You kind of start learning prep is a big pain, and all that extra time, you know, is just better spent
mm,
doing other things for me. But those people that love cooking as a hobby, like I used to, yeah, I kind of miss it, but not really because I like feeling this good more than I miss the prepping food. But I dry brine all my food. So I'm still a foodie. I still take steps. I don't, you know, I watch some people that cook ground beef and I'm like, I'm still the guy that, you know, gets a Maillard reaction and browns it super, super good. You know, I still use like De Bouillet carbon steel pans, you know, for when I do my pan searing. So I'm kind of still a bit of a, I don't know what, a foodie guy in that sense that I like to have it. It's not just totally meal to me. I still love grilling. I still love working with carbon steel, you know, on an outside
mm,
gas grill. And my inside electric won't do it for me. So I cook outside because I want that gas. I want that heat. I want the stuff. So maybe you can
mm.
also look at replacing it with mastering these cuts of meat that you do and make them phenomenal in a very simple way.
Yeah.
That's what I found the transition. And I don't miss, trust me, I do not miss the cleanup of making fancy things.
That's one of the major benefits of carnivore.
Yeah. I was going to
Mm,
say on this one too, sub 200 pounds is kind of that mark, you know. I
mm,
don't think I hit 300, but I was pretty close to it. I might have pushed past it, but I don't like to say that. Like I said, I quit weighing the scale at 275 and I went over, but I'm not 6'3". I was 5'11". I still
Mm.
am.
Nice
So
work,
I know
Patrick.
breaking that 200 pounds is a huge,
Mm.
that's good. Congrats on that. Now we
Yeah,
don't have to give you a boot to the
congratulations,
head.
Sandra.
The old,
Yeah.
and a boot to the head. That is the tip. You're going to pass it anyway.
Mm.
And before you know it, it's the old one foot in front of the other.
And it's always that thing, when you think, "Oh, this particular goal I've got's gonna take me too long," and then once the time passes anyway, it's like, "Oh, I could have done it," you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
And you can't go back, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like I said, I should have
Mm.
started a YouTube channel 5 years ago, but I didn't. But it was actually, Dave and Chafee talking. They're like, "Look, there's just no," I always, "Oh, there's enough people out there talking about it." And it was like, "No, there's not," and I was just like, "That's it." And remember when I contacted you? I'm like, "Okay," you know what I mean? Or you contacted me because I wrote that description. I said, "Look, this long carnivore,"
Mm.
and that's how we first hooked up. And here I am
Mm.
sharing with you guys and bringing that experience to the table. So
Mm.
also, I plead with everybody, comment on all these other carnivores channels, make comments. It does help us get the word out. The more comments we get, the better. The
Mm.
likes, the things, the more everybody speaks up, the more this is out there and people aren't going to ignore it because it is so life
Mm.
changing. I do have to
Definitely.
give that to everybody out there.
Mm.
I eat leftovers cold too. I love cold chuck steak or chuck roast. I actually like it cold as much as hot.
Yeah, and is that something you've always liked, or is that more since you've been carnivore and your taste just changed in that direction?
I've always liked chuck, but I've never liked it cold. So
Mm.
now I like it cold. And one thing I actually like to do is if there's some fat in there, if you lay it like out on a sheet pan, so there's like an even little, the fat kind of hardens to the edge. And then you
Mm.
take all those pieces and then shove them in a bowl, you get that extra kind of like fat with it. And it's not like, oh, I'm trying to eat a lot of fat. There's just a little bit there, but it just kind of makes it
Mm.
better because if I put it in too deep of a dish, it all goes down to the bottom, then it's not
Ah.
dispersed and the top ones almost feel dry. So like
Mm.
I kind of like it that way. But yeah, it's just a weird thing to like cold. I never thought I would. It reminds me of eating like deli roast beef, really. When you
Mm.
think of it, it's just like a deli roast beef. I do
Yeah.
beef, pork, chicken with no problem at all, and dairy too. That's awesome.
Nice. So for me, the thing with I'm fine with pork, and I'm okay with I think I'm okay with chicken too, but I've just completely lost the taste for chicken.
Yeah. I had 2 bites yesterday. My wife had a
Mm.
rotisserie chicken for there's those dumb thumbs up things again. Come on, Apple. I keep turning this off and it keeps coming up. I can't get away from it. I think I can do like fireworks if I do this. I think I can do this and then make fireworks happen or something like that. Or is it too yeah, there
Oh,
you go. See
yeah, there you
confetti.
go.
Anyway, yeah, I had 2 bites of it and I was just kinda like, "Eh," like you, I just don't even care. And it used to be my favorite thing. Like, remember I
Mm.
told you that my favorite thing was like either chicken teriyaki or chicken and shoyu, chicken rice and
Mm.
shoyu. Those are my favorite, and katsu.
Yeah,
That's that
yeah.
Hawaiian side of me coming out, is like all the Asian stuff. See, I just need to move to Okinawa to a blue zone and tip the scales.
Get
Like, there's a
to a
carnivore
blue
living in
zone.
the blue zone. There's a carnivore living in the blue zone, you know? Still have coffee cream, but I wonder what difference it might be if I tried a break. Well, there's your answer. Try a break.
Mm.
Again, my journey was 2 years in. I tried to quit in keto, so actually kinda 2 years into carnivore, 3 years into this journey total. I tried to quit at the beginning. I tried to quit, like, about every 6 months to a year, and it didn't work until the 2-year mark, and then boom, it just was, like, awesome. Then I
Mm.
noticed the difference. So, yeah,
And
quit, and if it doesn't work, try it again next year.
yeah, and Mark, you could always, try that in parts, you could just give up the cream first, and just have black coffee, and see how you go with that for like 30, 60 days, and then try giving up both, and see how you feel best.
Yeah. Beth
Chicken
and I
and
have a lot in
cheese.
common on what we eat, I think it seems, you know.
I've been surprised the amount of carnivores that say
Give
they
those up.
don't have that taste for chicken anymore.
Yeah. And pork is kind of a 50-50, you know.
Mm,
Some do, and like I still like bacon once in a while, but it's not, but I can't eat a lot of it. In the beginning, in the first year, I could, push a pound down me easy, with like a bunch of other stuff. And now I have like 4 pieces and I'm like, that's good enough. And I'm just
mm,
happy. I do still make it for the family because I do like using the grease to fry my chuck roast in because it adds that little bit of that bacony, smoky flavor. And I do really
nice.
like cooking with that bacon grease, though.
Mm, nice.
You know,
Mm.
7 weeks in. Congrats on that.
Yeah. So clarity of tarot and meditation. I mean, like regarding the depression and feeling, like
Yeah,
I guess you're missing out or something. I would say the most important thing at the moment would be kind of what the steak and butter gang um promote, and that was I would just be trying to eat as much as you can, kind of treating if you're still feeling that, if you're feeling a kind of lack or something, I would be pri- priming as much as possible, just eating as much as I can during the day until I kind of get over, until that feeling starts to dissipate.
yeah.
Mm.
And I think too, it's that 7 weeks is pretty early in. A lot of people are
Mm,
are stalled for 7 weeks and don't notice stuff, and they're still learning. And I look at my first 6 months were just all over the place. The next 6 months were
mm,
still all over the place, but not quite as much.
mm,
So, and I don't think it's like, I should say this. I don't think it's like necessarily 6 months for everybody. I think it's kind of also reaching a kind of where you're at. Like I had a
yeah.
lot to lose, like over 100. Like, you might have reached it quicker, Dave, because I don't think you had that, I mean, you weren't trying to do that and you weren't having quite the same things. But like your balance and your one side that's a bit different, you know, kind of up into that point. What am I trying to say? It's like these guys that are losing 200 pounds, it might take them 2.5 years. They might have a lot of
Yeah.
variance for a year and a half because it's in
Mm,
maybe it's a percentage. It's a percentage of to you finding your optimum. And then once you hit your optimum, it's those small changes. But
yeah,
again, it's that guy
agreed.
who's on gold medal versus the last person in the Olympics. The last person in the Olympics is still like the top 20 in the world, but he's never going
Mm,
to see the podium. And if you're okay with just being in the Olympics and don't care to be on the podium, I think that's where a lot of people can sit and still be like, okay, I'm happy, you know, having some
yeah.
veggies once in a while if you want to do clean keto or having your coffee with cream and just enjoy life
Mm,
too. We don't have to get that dogmatic about it.
yeah.
And this
Mm,
this brings me to a point. Upset my stomach as I always did. There's some people that do have like I had a comment about, oh, I'm still having diarrhea. This isn't good. I'm 3 months in. It's like, well, what are you eating? What are you taking in? Adjust the fat. Obviously, start dropping the fat a little bit. But first, are you drinking like 4 cups of coffee a day or 6 cups of coffee a day? Because that's going to affect it. Or if you're not drinking any, are you drinking like, yeah, I don't want to be short on electrolytes, so I'm having 3 packs of Element, like that much stuff could affect it too. So there's also
mm,
those little things, and this is knowing yourself, I think,
mm,
with the I don't do coffee, it upsets my stomach. It always did. But then why did you drink
yeah.
it? I would say now I say that from my position because I drank coffee for 30 years.
But yeah,
I think we
that's
did stuff
that
like we knew those Oreos stuffing them in our face with ice cream wasn't good for us, but we still did
mhm.
it.
Like, you know, you can get up, you'll have a coffee, maybe as your first drink, then you might have some breakfast or some lunch or whatever, and that's high fat meal, and then maybe you'll have another couple of coffees, and at some point that is going to probably upset your stomach, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to get things moving much faster through there. So
In the comments, if you can, guys, drop what time you eat your meals. Like if you eat one meal a day or two meals a day, what are the times? I'm curious. And
hmm.
how you feel.
So what times are you eating, Chad?
I'm eating when I'm hungry, which is around 11 to 1. My
Hmm.
first 2 years, I tended to eat about 4 to 6. I could push myself longer into the 4 to 6. And I could do that again. All I've got to do is kind of like, you know what I mean? Push that clock forward and wait because I'm still getting 24 hours. I tend to be satiated for 24 hours.
Mm.
And I've been trying this out. And I'm actually thinking with this fasting that I'm doing of pushing that clock back again to 4 to 6 and see what happens.
Okay.
Which I think maybe I'm going to do. Maybe I'll do that if I eat tomorrow or the next day. Maybe I'll just start pushing that back and do two things at once. Then I don't know exactly what happened with my experiment, though. That's the problem. And that's the other thing.
Mm.
You can't experiment too much at once. You can't go like Dave said about, well, try quitting the cream and then quitting the coffee. That's almost a good example because if you quit both, you might not realize what it was that was really bugging you. It might turn about to been the
Mm.
cream and not. And that way, like if you quit the cream, for a month and then quit the coffee and then brought back in, say, just cream and see how you feel, drop that, go back to clean, then bring in just the coffee, see how you feel. You can go, okay, wow,
Mm.
cream isn't bugging me. I think there's other ways to test it with that.
Mm. Definitely. Yeah. So is anyone talking about what times yet?
I'm going to get down there. I'm going to try to catch him. You know me, I'm kind of slow at this, aren't I? I'm so bad.
Breakfast. So noon to
Wait, hang on.
5.
I think I was up here between 2 and 3. So,
Uh,
hey, yeah, so between 2 and 3. Oh,
mm.
mad. Too mad. First one whenever I get hungry, 9 a.m. all the way up to 2 p.m. That's
Mm.
interesting. That's a pretty wide spectrum.
Mm.
That's good. That's kind of like me. It's kind of like I'm about 11 to 2, but sometimes I am hungry early in the morning. Sometimes I do. If I'm up doing something, I will just go, well, I've kind of got this, task to do, then I know I can do it later because we know on Carnivore you can easily push a task off 3 hours and not be hungry
Mm.
at all. I graze on burger patties during the day and then have a meal at 6. See, and there would be a fun
Mm.
test to do is just quit the grazing and just wait till you're truly hungry and have that first take whatever burger. I'm just thinking, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just thinking out loud how my brain works, just to be clear. But like take those, okay, I tend to graze on 2 burger patties. Hold off on those and just wait till you're kind of hungry, say at 11, and then see how that meal is. See, I think, aren't we both thinking the
Mm.
same thing, Dave? This is about that testing and playing,
Yeah,
experimenting.
definitely. It's good to just change things up and see how your body responds.
Hmm. Noon
Noon
to
to
5,
5.
so a little bit later. So there's a breakfast, dinner at 2. Cool. It's a good tight window.
Mm.
I think we should have a reasonable window. I was watching Thomas DeLauer today talking with some other guy who thinks like for most people a 12-hour window is great. But it's like sometimes as guests on there are dealing with normal people eating normal diets, and I don't think that exists. I found I feel best if I am going to eat again, I'll know it and I'll just go ahead and eat. I won't wait till I'm
Mm.
really hungry. Like I can tell like 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, okay, I did not eat enough. I got to eat more. And then I'll go ahead and eat. But if I am hungry in the evening, like I said, I'll go ahead and eat and not worry about it because it's not as often. But I don't know
Mm.
what you think about window times of eating. I mean, I'd rather eat at 11 and 5 than I would like 9 and 9 or something weird. You know what I mean? I'd rather have a tighter window if I can. I notice I feel better on a tighter window.
Yeah, for me, it
What?
really just comes down to no. Again, this is maybe an individual thing, but knowing my body, I don't do well if I eat really too close to when I'm going to go to sleep. So
Yeah,
the window would be tighter for me just because of that.
I would be curious, Amber, if it did help, if you noticed anything different when you did switch. I would really be curious about
Mm,
that
yeah.
because that's good info.
Mm,
Oh, man, that varies widely time-wise.
mm,
2 meals, 8 p.m. the other night. 2 a.m. Oh, okay.
wow.
Night work. Okay. I'm like
Uh,
going, what? Like, but if you're working, I guess we call it a graveyard.
yeah, Ben's
I'm
working
all
in a
over the board.
hotel.
Yeah. So I have the coffee habit. I'm always hungry about 8 a.m. up at 4 a.m. I wonder if coffee, like with a habit, like I started doing more bone broth because all this lamb I'm eating, I end up with a massive excess of bones. So I've been making
Mm,
bone broth, and uh, I actually kind of find it enjoyable. Is it almost brings that coffee thing back. I do sometimes think there's something about holding a warm cup and sipping on something warm,
yeah.
where I do wonder if some people could do bone broth to replace coffee. And like
I,
I've
I,
said, bone broth with cream in it is insanely good, but I don't put cream in that often. But thoughts?
I think there's something to that, like having that warm cup, because the great replacement for me for coffee has been just hot water with salt in it. It's great.
Yeah, I remember you were saying that, but you're a little
Mm.
loose, so that don't follow what he's saying. Whoop! Hang on a quick second, guys. Hang on. Sorry about this.
Okay, so it's your mum, carnivore since January. I like to eat large meals around lunchtime for the first meal, then smaller meal later in the evening. Yeah. Okay.
So that
So
was my wife.
that
Whenever my wife calls, it's like, oh, go ahead.
uh all okay?
Yeah, it's all okay.
Okay. Um yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. Kind of have the bigger meal earlier on and the smaller meal later in the evening. Yeah, that's the way I'd be doing it. Like when I'm doing too mad, the bigger meal is the eggs and the ground beef and that kind of thing, and then later on it'd just be the ground beef.
Yeah,
Mm. 20-ounce
it's
rim.
a pretty good mix of like, OMAD or two, or kind of pushing the OMAD.
Mm. The interesting thing for me,
What
there's
is your
not
YouTube channel?
many people that stay to eating 3 meals a day. There are some, but you don't meet many people that are carnivore and still do 3 meals.
Why don't you promote fasting? Okay, I'll let you hit this one first, Dave. Then I'll hit this just for fun,
Um, for
just
me,
for
I mean,
info.
I do fast. I fast every day. Like, basically, my day is a 23-hour fast. Um, I think that fasting is good, and for me, the number one thing, there's probably health benefits, but the number one thing for me is that I save time and I'm much more productive as a result. Um, but I guess my perspective is that we should really clearly separate carnivore and fasting, because a lot of people, when they're starting to come into carnivore, they feel like they're not doing it right if they're not fasting as well. And that can throw people off at the start because they're trying to do two things. They're trying to kind of just go down to eating only, say, meat and eggs. And they're putting that extra pressure on themselves to eat one meal a day. And I think the fasting side of things, we should kind of let that happen naturally, because it will happen naturally on carnivore. That's my take on it.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, what is fasting? Like I am doing 2 days of fasting for the next 2 months. This is my second day of the second week, only to push myself, only to experiment again, because I don't like fasting. I like eating one meal a day. And that is like Dave said, a 23-hour fast. The other thing, Dr. Chafee's covered it. Quite a few people have covered it. Eating carnivore is already kind of mimicking a fasting state to your body. So a lot of people like Chafee say you don't need to fast because it's already a mimic. I think that's the correct term I'm looking for, isn't it, Dave? Like a mimic state,
Mm, yeah.
of what most people would be doing. So I think fasting is way more important for people doing a standard America diet or a standard garbage diet or whatever you want to call it, not necessarily even in America, but just, eating the standard carb junk. I think it's way more important. I think with carnivore, it's not as important. And I would say, why are you doing it? Do you have a reason you want to try it? And if you're trying to heal something, I'd say, yeah, 100% do it. It's kind of like that primal Mike that some of us know, skinny guy putting on weight. He knows why he's drinking milk. Me coming from, the 275, 300 range, I don't want to be drinking milk. Dr. Chafee doesn't want to drink milk because he can't stop. Like he said, I used to drink a gallon a day and it's good, but I know it's not there
Mm,
because there's carbs and sugars. So it's also the why you would want to be doing the fasting. So I think we do promote it more in the sense of OMAD and whether that's
mm,
long. So I would be curious if you were thinking, is OMAD not enough fasting, or are you thinking more 2-day fasts? I'm going to
mm,
try it and see if it works for me. I'm trying to lose that last little bit of loose skin and see if I can tighten it down. And I'll have some pictures of me up sometime without my shirt on. But Dave's, we've talked and Dave's seen me before. I don't look like I've lost 100 pounds. I don't think. Do you, Dave? I don't have that typical look, of loose skin at all.
oh, no, 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 not at all.
So I'm doing it to just get that last little bit. So there's also that reason,
Mm.
kind of thing. Eat by window. Yeah. The other thing I do in the summer is I go outside and take my shirt off and eat outside when the weather's warm enough, because then you get that vitamin D in you and everything else. So that's something I do. I literally go outside, take my shirt off, sit outside and kick back and relax. And, because you're going to be eating anyway. So you might as well sit out in the sun and get that sun exposure,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, I got to catch up. I'm so bad.
Mm.
I should let Dave drive this more often.
That's the kind of sucky thing about StreamYard is you can't share this.
I know they should have it.
Like it's only the host that, like, even if you could start, like
Yeah.
the other person could star stuff, it'd be useful. But
Yeah. Fasting is epic.
I mean,
I
you
can't
do feel
imagine
good
and don't.
on a fast.
Yeah, I do. The second day in now, I feel good right now sitting here. Like I
Mm.
actually feel you get this weird, like almost better feel than when you're eating. It's a really weird thing.
So it's kind of calmness that comes over you, right?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. It's important not to get, yeah, it's important to stay satiated so you don't have cravings for that stuff.
We do 2 meals, 10 AM, 3 AM, 3
Mm.
cups of coffee. See, that'd be a good test. Again, I'd never tell anybody to do it. I just can't help but experiment, and wanna stop and do things. But that's also why I stopped seasonings. Like I said, except for once in a while when my boy's making taco meat, I'll have a couple bites and I'm like, "Yep, seasonings don't work," you know? It's like they just don't
Mm.
work, and it's not like it's that bad and it doesn't stay with me, but it's just like, yeah, they don't work. And that's why I only, like I said, literally this little bowl, it's just like a little ice cream bowl kinda thing, of taco meat just to go, "Yeah, okay." I
Mm.
just like my smoked salt. 3 meals of fatty latte in the morning with butter and 2 raw eggs, bacon and eggs for lunch and steak, hamburger for supper. I'm still new though. That's cool.
Nice.
The other thing, that I bet would be good, and I don't know, maybe people already do this. Like I said, I can't do the egg whites, but I bet a raw egg, if you got the bone broth super, super hot, make it like an egg drop soup base. It'd be nothing different than that. Drop a raw egg in the boiling hot bone broth and mix it around. I bet that would be awesome. I bet that would be really good, actually.
It was one of the episodes of, it was one of our episodes where I had a raw egg for the first time in my life, right?
Yeah, it was with Nicole when
That
we were
was
doing that
early
stuff,
on.
trying
Yeah.
to gross
Okay.
each other
Yeah.
out. And you remember?
Yeah.
Then I got on the fisheye balls with her and how they would pop around in my mouth, and she didn't like that.
I was surprised how good a raw egg tasted.
Yeah, it's not much to it. It's kind of a pretty calm taste. It doesn't taste like cook eggs to me either. That's what's interesting.
Yeah, it's
I
very,
used to
very
like
different.
raw eggs in drinks and stuff because it thickens it up and kind of makes it good. My wife won't do a raw eggs. She gets freaked out. She doesn't do carnivore or keto, but she just gets freaked out with me even, when I used to eat them, kind of deal. Well, that's good then. I'm sure they're gonna get a lot of the metabolic and the autoimmune stuff. I had a comment on my allergies, and the guy wrote in the comments, it's like, "Oh, your allergies are only down because you were allergic to food and you quit eating them." I just said, "Thanks, I was allergic to food allergies, but no, it was the pollens and the outside," it's like so the metabolic stuff is a big reason I think most of us stay, even when the weight's off.
Definitely.
Here we go. Fasting is for healing. 5 days minimum, once a month reduces addiction as well. Fair enough. Yeah. I guess, and this is again that, maybe I'll try doing a 5-day fast once a month for 3 months and just see what happens. I'm totally up for testing everything because I could never say no. And I would never say, "Oh, I can't feel any better," because I've kind of been flattened out like on this recent lamb thing. That's like, wow, I can feel actually a little bit better. So yeah, I could try that after doing these 2-day ones. Maybe I could even try to work it into doing the longer. Maybe I'll just push for like a 3-day, get used to that, and then do a 5-day and see. I know a lot of people talk about dry fasting too is like really insanely beneficial, and you can do a 2-day dry fast, and that's like doing a 7-day wet fast. I don't know.
What's the
Have you ever done a
I
dry fast,
actually don't
PW?
understand. What's the difference between a dry fast and a wet
You
fast? Like
don't
dry
drink
fast, there's
anything. You do not
no
drink
water.
no water, no water. Yeah, no
I would
drinking.
struggle. I would struggle with that.
I would I would struggle. I just like, no.
If I
I could
can't
try it.
drink,
I could make it
yeah,
happen, but it would be tough. I
sound
think
like an
there's too much
alcoholic.
going on
If
in
I
my
can't
life.
drink,
Yeah. Right now, there's just too much going on with my life anyway to even
Mm,
attempt these big things. I can push a 2-day fast. That's nothing.
mm. Intermittent fasting creates healing by the body, making
Now,
BDNF, BHB, and
some of the
ketones.
research for the 5-day in this question, I would like to hear like Chafee and some of the other guys talk about this mimic fasting state of carnivore, if that really matters as much because we're mimicking that fasting state. Like he doesn't seem to think so. So it'd be interesting if we could ever find data on that, or again, like that, test on ourselves. Like I'll find out in
Mm,
3 months how this 2-day fasting did help me or other people. That Dante Frigno Freedom just did it,
mm,
and I'll try the 5-day thing. I've thought about trying to do some 2-day dry fasts when I'm not in this family situation.
mm.
I'm 2 weeks nicotine free today, only gained 4 kilograms lost. Nice.
Nice.
My cheese is 90% dark chocolate. It's allowed as much as fasting. That's how I look at it. I'd say, if it works and it works for you and you're happy with that, that's see, I can't take away your decoder ring, your carnivore decoder ring, because there is no ring to take. So I would say that's you. And if it's an enjoyment that keeps you going, that's how I look
Mm.
at it. I will say this. When people talk about being carnivore and they're doing like if that's a once in a while thing for a cheat, it's not a big deal. But I see some people, it's like, oh, I'm strict carnivore. Look at the meal I made. Here's my serving of green beans. It's like, it's not carnivore. It's just keto or low carb. Call it that.
Mm.
The only I don't care, but the only reason it can mess people up is then they're going to go, oh, well, this one person I know does carnivore and they're not really losing weight. But yet you find out that they're always eating these things off carnivore. Does that make sense, Dave?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
when the keto people.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it just helps the newer people more than we don't really care. But then when those people are like, oh, well, I had a friend doing carnivore and they didn't do well. Well, it turns out that they weren't really doing, you know, a strict. So it's only like in terms that it might help you. But if you find out that what they want to call carnivore is allowing some of that, then you might want to do like what some people might call strict carnivore, because I don't even know what that is. Maybe like what Dave and I do without seasonings and salt and
Mm.
water kind of thing. Because in some ways
Mm.
would a lion eat eggs if he had access to them? Maybe. So maybe we're kind of lion in that sense that you're eating just a base thing all the time and not really changing. Between my 3 cuts of meat, I'm kind of, and the one cheese that I'm stopping anyway this week. You know, I think that's the only thing about the carnivore name is when people use it outside. I'm like, it confuses some people.
Mm.
That's my
Yeah.
rant. Never mind. I'm done. I'll be done with that rant. White pepper and salt. Did you got Malden salt, didn't you? I think you said you got, or did you,
Yeah,
Dave? Did you
modern
pick
sea
up the
salt.
Malden
Yeah,
salt?
yeah.
Yeah. So how are you
Yeah.
liking that now?
I really like it.
It's fun
It's
crunch,
still
isn't it? It's a really
yeah,
good.
it's I haven't 100% got used to it though, because it's still like,
Mhm.
you'll get a quite a large piece in your mouth, and it's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that." But,
Yeah.
yeah, it is good.
I like that. And it definitely has a different salt flavor being the sea salt than
Mm.
it does like the mineral salt, like, the Himalayan or the Redmonds or whatever else you
Mm.
might have. It's
Yeah.
definitely, and I like that variety.
Mm.
Heavy metals and dark chocolate. Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, this is what we're talking about in this whole thing right here, this experiment and test. The thing to do would be stop the chocolate for 3 months and see what happens and then decide.
Yeah.
Like, okay, wow, I guess that was bugging me. I guess that's what I kind of was feeling after that. Next bone broth, I'm popping an egg. Awesome. I wanna hear that then. I I
Nice.
I should do it and just suffer through what the egg whites and get itchy skin and a gut ache for 2 days just to try it for flavor.
Mm.
Dipping sauce for my meat, yep.
Yeah,
I
that's
used
that
to put
sukiyaki, right?
yeah, the raw egg yolks too. Like, I don't like separating the yolks that much, it's not enough,
Mm.
you know? The good thing is once you start swallowing a raw egg, it all goes down. You can't, like, do half of it. Kinda like an oyster, you know what I mean? You can't really, like,
I
suck
I
on
I
a raw egg.
I couldn't swallow it like that. Like, when I tried it, I had to mix it up completely
You had to
before
mix
I
it up and do it, yeah.
yeah,
I
like,
always do
'cause
it as a big
that's
lump
the
and then
texture thing like that is the thing that would just yeah, that's why I can't eat
get it
oysters.
wrong.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't really like shellfish or the crustacean stuff,
Mm.
you know? Get down through these. Did you see any questions here? I'm gonna try to
Mm.
catch up here
No,
because
I
some of it's
didn't.
inner talk. But I don't drink water for 2 days, I'm dead. Some people though, it is interesting because even on the dry fast, and I was watching somebody who was talking about dry fast, and they were doing these like you got to be careful. He's like, you got to be really careful. But he's like, I do 3-day dry fasts. I'm just like, I wouldn't want to go for 3 days without water. I don't know. And some of these people don't
I
look any
would,
better than other people either. This is the other
yeah.
thing. It's interesting because I kind of say who's walking the walk and talking the talk and what they're doing. That's cool that they're doing it. But at the same time, do they really appear better? Also, I think some of us who are, say, north of 50 have different cares, I guess, what we want to do. We're not trying to build this like model body, and some of the carnivores that are doing it that are like 20 and 30, and this comes out with all due fun. It's like it's pretty easy to look like a hot 20 or 30-year-old body wise if you want to. You don't need
Mm.
carnivore, You can do it on whatever because you're 20 or 30, but when you start getting 60, you don't care if you have a hot body, you just wanna be in shape so you're not creaking and cracking when you walk down the stairs and you can tie your shoes whenever you want. Or, don't you kind of agree though? It's not I think we have different
Yeah.
intentions where we're going.
I think
It's
it
like
gets to a point where you don't wanna feel like you're doing it because you just wanna, yeah, you don't wanna have the joint pain anymore. You don't wanna have the,
yeah,
this, like you said, the stomach in the way of tying your shoes or whatever, you know?
yeah, and it gets
Mm.
tiring, and I know, like, there was this guy on the Thomas DeLauer show, this doctor talking about the fasting and 12-hour windows is better, and I was like, looked him up. Sometimes I do this just because I'm curious. So he's like 53 years old, and I'm like, but you, if this was working so good and you're so pushing it, and this is some genetics, you know, is it really working for you? Is this just how you feel internally, and it's not this external thing, or is it both? Because you look at
Mm.
some of the guys like Sean Baker. You would never guess the guy is his age. He might look it in the face, but I mean, his body wise, he's not, you know what I mean? He's still ripped.
Yeah.
So he can kind of say what he's doing works. And when he's like, oh, I don't know, I just eat the steak and just this is what I do. And, I don't think you need this. It's pretty hard to disagree with the guy that looks like that. The same thing like
Right.
Chafee. It's pretty hard to disagree with the guy that looks like that. And the same thing, I think
Mm.
if somebody's been doing this for 2 or 3 years and they're still stalling and they're still having a trouble getting through it, but then you see what they're eating and they're eating like, tons of cheese every day or tons of pork rinds every day and stuff. It's like that's probably what's doing it. Cut it out. And this
Mm.
gets me to the point. One thing how I look at carnivore nowadays, can I live on this? Yes or no? If I can't live
Mm.
on this, it's strictly a treat for once in a while if I feel like some crunch for pork rinds. Otherwise, I'm to the point where why even fill up on those pork rinds to take up space of what good quality meat will do for me? So
Mm.
I'm kind of that's kind of where I've come to after 4 years of doing this maybe, is it
Mm.
it and I don't miss it. It's like I really don't miss the pork rinds. The first year or so I did, because
Mm.
pork rinds and sour cream are awesome. Do you find that at all, Dave?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same train of thought. It's just, can I do this forever? And
Mhm.
yeah, if the answer is yes, I'm happy with that. Yeah. Um, Sorry to
I don't
jump
know
in,
where this
Chad, but
one
I'm
came
gonna
from.
have to
Yeah, you
bounce.
gotta go. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just from me, just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining in and commenting, and yeah,
Appreciate it.
I will see you next week.
Yep. I think we're gonna both sign off then. I think we've hit all the questions. People think I'm still 40 and 56. That's awesome. Alrighty, man.
Cheers,
We will see
guys.
you. A hooey ho.
Thank you.